All right, everybody. Hey, everybody. It's Thursday night. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Here once again with our two coaches, Dustin Dodery, Brad Vandelite. And tonight we're going to have an awesome conversation. I want you to stick with me because we're going to cut to the intro here. Be back in 60 seconds, but I'm going to cue this up. We're going to talk about, I'll set it up as a joke. Okay, here's a joke. Three guys walk into a bar, an athlete, a martial artist, and a protector. Stick around for the punchline. Back in 60 seconds.
Many people understand that they can at any time become the target of a violent criminal assault. These same people know that they have a life, family, and property worth defending. Criminals understand that violence is its own language. Violence is not the sport of competition. Violence is not the art of fighting. Violence is about one thing: destruction. There are those who believe that violence, even in self-defense, is morally wrong. Then there are good people like you who know that defending yourself, family, and others, as well as your property, is not only a personal right, but a duty within a civilized society. Understand, violent assaults are won before they occur. People who learn strategy survive. People who do not will not. For those brave people who believe life is precious and worth defending.
Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, guys, we are back, and just before we cut to the intro, I kind of set it up as a joke. Three guys walk into a bar. You've got a competitor, a martial artist, and you got a protector. This is what we're going to break down tonight, guys, and the conversation is going to be very fluid. I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to overly direct this because this just kind of hit me a little bit before we went live here, and I thought, you know what, I changed gears from what I was going to talk about, and I want to jump into this, and there's a reason why. Over the last little bit, obviously, I have been engaging in some new marketing campaigns, right? Just reaching out to more and more good people that are interested in learning to protect themselves from violent criminal assault. And as you do this, and this is the same, it's every time that I've done this, you inevitably encounter two different schools of thought. Well, three, really, right? You have the people that are, I would classify as the protectors. These are the sheepdogs. Then you have the martial artists, and you have the combative athletes. And inevitably, these three groups make themselves known. They interact with the marketing piece. They interact with what I'm saying or the message that I'm putting out there. And it's interesting because everyone knows how oil and water go together, right? You dump oil and water together and eventually they separate. Okay, so in this, I thought this is such an interesting dichotomy to you that I thought we got to dive into this and explore this. And I'd love to get your guys' opinions on this. But the athlete, right? And I'm talking about a combat athlete, your mixed martial arts guys, your Thai boxers, your jiu-jitsu competitors. So whatever it is, they are the competitors. So they take a martial art and it's a competitive martial art, or, you know, whether like mixed martial arts now is considered an art. So but their focus is competition. Then there's the actual martial artist, and that could be your traditional martial artist, right? It might be your karate, your taekwondo, whatever it is. And it can be a lot of people that they're in a martial art that people do compete in, but they go, I'm not into the competition. I'm just there to do the art. But you got your martial artists, and then you have the sheepdogs, you have the protectors. And these are three different groups. Are there some commonalities? Well, of course, it's like oil and water go together where they're both a liquid, right? So yes, there's going to be similarities. There's going to be commonalities. There's going to be crossover. There's going to be all that stuff. But what I want to focus in on is why we have this separation. And some people, right, and everyone gets what it is. You have your trolls on the internet and all this kind of stuff. And so there's people out there that they just have nothing better to do than to try to create conflict, right? They hide behind their keyboards and they post shit and they want to create conflict. And I'm not talking about that specifically because that just is what it is. I don't give a shit. But the separation exists. And real quickly, let me get your guys' visual thing. Let's athlete, the martial artist, and the protector. What is your definition, really quickly, of the athlete? Okay, just viscerally, what do you guys think when I say the combat athlete? What do you see? What comes to your mind?
First thing that comes to my mind is like just mixed martial arts, like, you know, like just somebody that is, I don't know, that, they're just they want to compete, and they want to have that bravado that is behind that competition.
Okay. Let me interrupt this because I agree with you 100%, right? We say mixed martial artist, and what's the first thing that comes to your mind is an image. That's a symbolism. This is how the human brain works, right? So I say mixed, I say competitive athlete, and right away you said mixed martial artist. That's what comes to mind. Okay, what is the motivation, do we think, right? Because, I mean, clearly, listen, I've trained with mixed martial artists. I know a lot of guys that compete professionally. So it's not like I'm guessing here, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm saying, what is the motivation? Why does somebody go into the competitive arts, the combative sports? What's their driving force? What would you say? Let's try it this way. Let's try to break down what their number one, like 1, 2, and 3. What are their top goals and priorities?
I don't know. I don't know if I can rank them in order, but I mean, I think on one hand there'd be a lot of similarity to any competitive sport. Like I think you'd see a lot of similarities between someone who goes into mixed martial arts, the same way as someone who says I want to play in the NHL. I think there'd be a lot of parallels you can draw there. Obviously, choosing a fighting sport versus, hockey or basketball or baseball or golf or whatever's got a pretty big difference in it too, and maybe that touches more on what Brad said about bravado and maybe their upbringing of what it means to be a man, and it could be tied into that for sure, as well as just the competitive side of things. But
okay, so what is the goal? You gave a great definition, but you didn't actually state what do they want. You said, well, we can parallel it to the same thing they want in hockey and stuff. What is that? What do they want?
I think they want to compete, they want to win, they want to be the best.
Okay,
possibly fame.
Let's stop
fortune.
there. Okay. Now listen, okay, so fame, fortune, competition, to be the best, all that stuff, right? Do you think that's what they really, is that really where they start? How many, on a scale, like a percentage, how many people that are in a combative sport right now that are competing, that have an eye on having a good amateur career or even a professional fighting career, making it to the UFC, let's say, how many of them did you think started walking in going, I want to be the heavyweight, the middleweight, whatever it is, I want to be a UFC champ? Now, I think that in recent years, there's probably a higher percentage of people that want that, but I think that percentage is probably under 10%. It's probably under 5%.
Especially if you're talking about just going down to a local mixed martial arts school and gym.
Yes.
If you walked in that room and said, okay, what are these people here for? I 100% agree with you. The majority of the people in that room on their client list are not thinking, I'm going to make it to the UFC or even want to make it to the UFC.
Yes.
There's a ton of people there for sure that are like, well, I want to learn to fight. I want to learn to protect myself, self-defense, for sure.
Perfect. So I agree with you. And Brad, if you agree, then you weigh in on this. I agree that overwhelming majority of people that are in a competitive combat sport environment, whether that's mixed martial arts, whatever it is, I agree with you that probably 97%, let's just say 95%. Conservative. 95% of them went into a gym like that because they wanted to learn to fight. And that's just the word we'll put. They wanted to learn to defend themselves. They wanted to learn to fight. I think that that's an absolute true statement. I think in the last few years, there's definitely a percentage of people that go there going, I want to compete. Like I used to compete as a kid in soccer or hockey or whatever, and I got out of that or that didn't work out. I need something competitive. I want that. I'm that guy. I like to compete. I think that's a small percentage of people. Can we all agree on that? I think that's probably true.
Just to clarify what I said earlier when I was talking about the fame, the fortune, and comparing it to an NHL player, I'm talking about if you go into the UFC and ask those guys why they're there.
Yes.
That's who I was describing.
Perfect.
And that's
yes.
why,
yes.
That's why I pulled the 180 when I said local gym, completely different.
100%. I think once you get into it and you're working your way up and you go, hey, there's a shot here to maybe do this as a living. I think a lot of them, when they get in there, are like, hey, could I support my family doing something that I enjoy, doing something that I love? I have a skill for this. I'm doing okay in this. Like, there's a chance to, again, earn a living doing something you love. And then there's the perks that come with that. Maybe there's fame, maybe there's money, all this type of stuff, right? But I just wanted to zero in. So we have the athlete, and they go, most people go to gyms, I want to learn to defend myself. Okay, let's go to the martial artist real quick. We're going to circle back. Now, a martial artist, Why does the martial artist end up at the martial art gym? Why does somebody end up at the Taekwondo gym, the karate gym, the Kung Fu, the Wing Chun? And it could be the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Judo. Why do they end up? What do we think their driving force is that got them to go into those organizations?
I think a lot of it too is the exact same. Is like they want to learn how to defend themselves, and maybe they don't identify with the combative athlete side of things. Like, yeah, but I don't want to do that competition. So they think that they are still going to get the same application or the same type of end result, but with a different application.
Perfect. Let's explore this, right? Go ahead. Actually, Dustin, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, kind of 2 points. I think one is, whether someone signs up for martial arts, like traditional martial arts versus sport competition, mixed martial arts type thing, might depend on 2 things. One would just be like proximity and availability. So if you're in like a smaller city, town, and all you have is a Taekwondo gym, you're probably going to join the Taekwondo gym. If all you have is MMA, you're probably going to join MMA, because they kind of can meet the same ends in some people's minds. And then I think the other factor, if you have access to both, why someone may choose traditional martial arts is either, tradition itself. There's some sort of thing that draws them to it. Could be age demographic. Guys our age, we grew up seeing traditional martial arts. Mm-hmm. So maybe our demographic, a lot of those guys would still go towards martial arts. Whereas maybe younger people who grew up with UFC would go straight to MMA. And then I think the other part of it too might be a lot of people, I think, see the aggression in mixed martial arts. And some people might shy away from that and see traditional martial arts as maybe a safer way to train, so to speak.
Yep. Okay, perfect. You just hit a lot of points that I was just about to break down. So let's just review it real quick. If we're talking about an athlete and we're talking about a martial artist, or obviously we're going to talk about the protector or the sheepdog in the society, all 3 of those areas, I believe, have one common start point. This is what draws people, right? Which is they want to learn how to defend themselves. I want to learn how to fight. I want to learn how to defend myself. I want to learn how to protect myself, my family. I don't care what terminology you put to it, but the core root is I want to defend or protect. I think we can all agree on that. And it's overwhelming. I think that it's 95, 97% of people that go into or seek out, take an action to learn some sort of self-defense or personal protection. That is why they start. But you just hit something that's massive. So how do we get divided? How does somebody then become the combat athlete? How does somebody then become the martial artist? Or how does somebody then become the protector invested in the weaponizing process? Well, what happens is, I agree, Dustin, proximity. Like, let's look at it. What are the paradigms? What is your symbol that represents to you fighting prowess? Like, first off, what does it mean to even be a fighter? Like, we get this all the time, right? People go, like, there's a social status that comes with being perceived as a fighter. And if you look back, you ask anybody, say, when you're in school, like I'm talking even junior high, high school, even elementary, was there a fighter in your class? Who was the tough kid? And everybody will have an image. Everyone go, that was so-and-so, right? Because we all go, and so what about him? What made him the fighter? Did he get in fights every single day? Did he fracture people's skulls? How many people did he kill? What? Well, no, he was just aggressive, or he was this, or he used to get in scraps all the time and stuff like that. They think back and it's like, these were these life and death fights when really they're probably just altercations. I've seen 2 guys sit there having a fight, throwing 300 punches and nobody hit anybody. And at the end of it, everybody was like, that was like the craziest thing. And it's like, that was like 2 Tasmanian devils rolling around in the dirt together. And at the end of it, they're just exhausted. Nobody's hurt, which is a good thing. Yeah. But it's like, everyone's like, that was like crazy. These are the fighters. But it's like everybody has a symbolism of what it means to be a fighter, to be a tough guy, to be able to protect, whatever it is. We've talked about this in the past. Most people equate fighting prowess to the size of somebody's muscles. The bigger the muscles, the tougher the guy. Right? That's it. You line guys up from small, like lean builds, all the way up to big bodybuilder muscle guys, and then ask the average people to rate who's the toughest, who's the weakest, and you're going to get the majority, overwhelming majorities mean the guys with the muscles. Which guy looks toughest, has the biggest muscles, looks the most athletic, tall, whatever it is. Okay.
Tattoos used to do that too until everybody's grandparents went out and got sleeves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tattoos, scars, all this. There's people out there that literally take water bottles, plastic water bottles, and cauliflower their ears. Why? Because if your ears are all cauliflowered up, you get the status of being a ground and pound jiu-jitsu expert, right, fighter, without ever having to have any of the skills. You just posture and you have the ears and people go, holy fuck. right? So anyways, the core thing I want to keep in this is what drew them to each of these different disciplines. I want to learn to defend myself. Proximity. Like, what's the symbol? Like I said, Dustin said, younger guys see MMA and they go, well, I'm going to go do MMA because those are the toughest guys on the planet. There's a great saying, right? He's Ken Shamrock at one point is the toughest man on the planet. Mike Tyson at one point was the toughest man on the planet. Like, really? Who? Like, whatever. North Americans loved boxing back in the day, right? So the heavyweight champion of the world was the toughest fighter in the world. But in Brazil, they loved jiu-jitsu. So you had guys like Rickson Gracie, in Japan, they love X. In Thailand, they love Thai fighters. And it's like, so every culture had their art or their sport representing it. And the champion, typically the heaviest in the category, was the champion. So everybody has this symbolism. So if you grew up and said, yeah, mixed martial arts, you tried to find a mixed martial arts school. You took MMA. If, like Dustin said, you're older, you saw karate and Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, you probably went to a traditional martial art. And you know what, realistically, even if people had a symbol, they probably went to what was most convenient. Mm-hmm. They just went to what was most convenient. And convenient what? Well, what's closest to me? What organization had the best, most accommodating class schedule? Oh, I work late Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you have class Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, that's not going to work for me. This is what I'd love to take, but I'll go down the street 2 blocks because they have class on Monday and Wednesday at that time. So I'll go there because that's convenient.
And there's a lot of people that it was convenient for their parents, schedule.
Excellent point.
Right?
Yeah, they start young enough, then that has nothing to do with them, and their parents picked what was, what had the best fit their finances, what fit the schedule, what fit, what's the symbolism? Oh, this is going to be great for discipline and this and this. And so we pick based off whatever the criteria that you happen to have is. Okay, so as we paint this picture of like the athlete, the martial artist, the protector, everybody wants to learn to defend themselves. And then all of a sudden there's these paradigms, there's these circumstances, these factors that funneled people to certain organizations. Okay, now here's what happens. When they got into these organizations, what happened? They get in there, go, well, I want to learn to defend myself. But when you get into the athletic environment, when you get into a gym that is predicated on competition-based fighting and competition-based skills, they are training and teaching based off competition. So what happens to this hierarchy all of a sudden? Like, is that the most efficient? Like, is it truly about self-defense? Now, here's the thing. What does combat sports, what does martial arts, and weaponizing all have in common? Well, I'll tell you. They all profess to teach you to defend yourself. All equally. Everybody, every art. You drive around the city and you see, here's the school, here's Taekwondo. Discipline, self-confidence, self-defense. Oh, here's mixed martial arts, conditioning, great, non-competitive environment, whatever they say, or like friendly environment, self-defense, competitions, whatever it is they're marketing, somewhere in there, they're all marketing self-defense. Now, is that true or is it false?
Oh, no, totally true. Almost as if it's just an automatic byproduct. Like, here's all the things we're selling, but you also get self-defense thrown in, just like it's some sort of given, right? Yeah, 100%. You don't have to put any energy, effort, or focus on it. You're just going to get that.
Yeah. Now, is it true? Do they get it? No matter what you do, whether you're the combat athlete, you're the martial artist, or you're the weaponized protector, do you learn to defend yourself?
No.
Okay. Dustin says no. Brad, what do you say?
Not in the right way.
Okay.
I'm with Dustin. I say no.
Okay. I'll go devil's advocate because I'd say no too with an explanation. I'll go the devil's advocate, right? I'll say they do. They do learn. They all do teach an aspect of self-defense. In what you guys are both no, I'm the yes, devil's advocate, yes, but I'm the yes. I want you guys to explain in what way am I right? That's kind of awesome, eh? You guys are the opposite. Don't defend your position. Tell me how I'm right. In what way am I right? How could I possibly say yes? How can I take that perspective and actually mean it on a certain level?
See, I think that is there almost like certain degrees, right?
Okay.
If you have an altercation at a wedding and it's your cousin, you know what I mean? But like when it comes to violence, like it's not a direct crossover because the content and the context don't match up, right? They don't work together because one is based on a completely different area. See, I'm trying to defend your position. I'm fucking doing a terrible job
because you don't agree with me. But what you said is powerful. Dustin, jump in. But I'll make a note real quick. Remember, Brad said context determines the content. So we'll circle back. But Dustin, go. Yeah. Help defend my position.
Yeah, but I guess the way I'd come at it is, I mean, everybody's got intuition. So some people will naturally be more in tune with their intuition. You know, we have a survival motor program buried within our brains somewhere, whether you've unlocked it or not. And I mean, obviously there's people out there who are in traditional martial arts or sport competition type arts or no arts at all, and they still survive violence. Like, it happens. So I think it's part of it, at least your defense is, it's not totally black and white. It's not like you either have to have this exact specific type of training or you're fucked. Well, no, if you do know how to do, well, whether it's nothing or, yeah, you know how to punch or you know how to kick, like, it could work, but you're not necessarily stacking the deck in your favor. The efficiency might be very low, but it could work, right?
Yes. Okay. Now I'll defend my position and then I'll defend your guys' positions. It's only fair. 100%. Listen, you have people that want to learn to defend themselves and they go to different organizations because of different reasons. One, because it fits the paradigm. Right? They look and go, the toughest fighters in the world are mixed martial artists. Conor McGregor's the toughest guy in the world. Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, these are the toughest men on the planet. Joe Rogan's got a massive, massive platform. Jocko Williams, and these guys are telling everybody, the Gracie brothers, Henry Gracie, they're telling everybody jiu-jitsu. If you have to do a self-defense, do jiu-jitsu because it's the greatest fighting art on the planet, right? So whatever your paradigm is, whatever your influence comes from, you're drawn to this thing. Now, if it's convenient, in terms of proximity, price, and time, you're going to go there. And you're going to start doing that. Now, do you learn to defend yourself? Well, yes, you do learn to defend yourself. Why? Because like Mac here made a comment, I'll pop it up. And Mac said, Mac, yeah, what'd you say? Truth in the sense that it's better than nothing, okay? And that's kind of what you guys echoed. And Dustin, you said that, and Brad, you said that. It's better than nothing. So, yes, okay. Here's why you guys said no, and here's where you're right. Brad said context determines the content. The difference between the combat athlete, the martial artist, and the sheepdog, the protector, the people that are invested in weaponizing, is that we are constantly looking at the term self-defense, which I hate. We are breaking it into its different segments, right? Everything, people got to understand, there is a scale, there's an index. And on this index, there is everything from low-level trigger-type encounters all the way up to crisis phase, grievous bodily harm and death type situations, lethal force type situations. What the weaponized, what the sheepdog, what we do that is different is we are specifically zeroed in on life and death encounters with violent criminal predators. Right? It's like, it's, you know, and what the martial artist and the combative athlete is about is they are down a notch from that going, well, what if there's an altercation? What if I get into a fight? What if I get in a one-on-one fight with somebody? Well, I don't have to hurt them. I can just wrap them up, put them on the ground. I can hold them in a lock. I can, submit them. I can choke them. I can do whatever it is. I can negotiate with them. It is like, what is the context of the situation? And there are far more situations that can arise below lethal force than there are lethal force. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, it's literally to me like saying, you have a police officer. Well, what are you going to train your police officers to do? Versus, what are you going to train your SWAT team to do? Versus, what are you going to train your tier 1 counter-terrorist unit to do? They're all military law enforcement. Are they not all part of the same field? Are there not crossovers? Do they not all use guns? Do they not all use, secondary tools? Do they not all use handcuffs or restraints? Like, we could have a massive list of all of the similarities, yet the differences are very, very clear to the people that understand that.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you. So let's explore it for just a quick sec, right? But in all honesty, just generally, What are you training your police force to do? What are they going to be doing every single day? Now, there's a lot of different, but let's generally, what are their interactions with the public going to be about?
I think you'd say mostly law enforcement, like the enforcement of local laws.
Okay. Now, let's say during the course of their enforcement of these laws, because 10,000 interactions with the public, how many of those interactions require hands-on use of force? Now, we don't have the exact statistics here, but let's say this. Right there, we'd have to go, what level of use of force? Are you talking about a restraint? Are you talking about a taser? Are you talking about batons? Are you talking about lethal force with like shooting someone? Are you talking about like just restraints and like transporting? What are we talking about here? But you see all of the different variations of levels of force that they could get into. But what are they dependent on? Well, in most law enforcement situations, they rely heavily on their tools. Meaning what? Meaning, I have a radio. What's one of the first things you're going to do when you respond to a call? You're going to respond with somebody, or you're going to ask for backup. If the situation starts to spiral out of control, what's one of the first things law enforcement is trained to do? Withdraw from the situation. Wait for backup to show up. Or they go, well, I have this taser, I have the pepper spray, I have the baton, I have my handcuffs, I have my firearm, I have all of these different tools that I can use and I can escalate through it. So what are we dealing with? Well, we're dealing mostly with like what we call altercations. Now, these altercations can mutate. Police officers are killed on the job. People are like civilian. People do die. It can mutate. But overwhelming majority of the interactions do not go there. And this is what we get. So you got a guy that's a combat athlete, and he started it to take because he wanted to learn to defend himself, and he walks in there. And here's what I tell you. Here's what I think happens to most people. They go in and go, listen, I want to learn to defend myself. Then they go in there, they meet the instructor, they meet the people that are in there, and they enjoy it or they don't. If they don't, they quit. But if they do, they go, this is pretty cool. I had some fun. And they start doing it. And then they're introduced to what? They're introduced to the art, to the skills, to the training, and they fall in love. And they go, this was great. Like, I love, like, kicking the pads was amazing. Like, working the heavy bag was amazing. Hitting the focus mitts was amazing. Learning those techniques and learning how to oopa and roll somebody and how to triangle choke or armbar somebody. I loved this. Was awesome. Like, the guys were so good. And the next, 6 months later, a year later, hey, we got this tournament that we're all getting ready for and we're all training. We got this little competition team. Anyone that wants to do that gets to meet on Friday, gets an extra class, and people fall in love. And now all of a sudden, they're not there now they're like, well, did I satisfy what my ultimate goal was, which was to learn to defend myself? And they're appeased by it a little bit because they're doing what? Well, they're doing things that are connected to fighting. They're like, I'm a police officer. Like, if, like you said, I'm out at the bar and somebody throws a punch at me and I wrap them up and I take them to the ground and I sit on top of them and I choke them out or I hold them and then the security pulls them away or the police show up. That's awesome. But again, where was that on the scale? Where was that on the use of force spectrum? Like, not even the use of, where was that on what we call the predator index? That wasn't a life and death, violent encounter with a criminal, with a predator. That was an altercation with somebody else that was posturing, somebody else that was looking to fight. And so these things happen. And so you have this realm where you go, yeah, it works. Like, can a police officer defend himself? All of a sudden it goes to violent force. Can a police officer defend himself? Yeah, he can pull out his gun and he can, he's trained for lethal force, but how much of his training is geared towards lethal force? Very, very small amount of it. It's fractional. Now, if you had a hostage situation, sometimes it's your beat cop that shows up there first and he has to react and he takes an action or maybe doesn't, or he sets up a perimeter, he waits for back. But who are they calling? It's not the Ghostbusters.
SWAT team.
Yeah, they're calling SWAT. Why would you call SWAT?
Because their training is more in line with the problem at hand.
Well, what does SWAT stand for? Special Weapons and Tactics. So right away the names say, listen, we have police and then we have SWAT. We have Special Weapons and Tactics. So what are they dealing with? Well, they're dealing with a different dimension, a different situation. and they have special weapons and tactics. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, but now you have a terrorist attack. But it's like, oh, say, well, if the terrorist attack happened in our city, you'd probably still have a SWAT response. And SWAT has had to learn special weapons and tactics training to deal with domestic terrorism. But we didn't call our SWAT teams and send our SWAT teams over to Afghanistan and Iraq. Mm-hmm. Who did they call for that job?
Be like CSOR.
Yeah, they called the Special Operations Units. JTF2 in Canada, CSOR got a lot of, did probably primary roles in there, but that's who they called. The Navy SEAL teams, the Delta teams, like whatever it is, every country has their tier 1 version of the counter-terrorist, and they were ready to mobilize and go anywhere they needed to go to deal with the threat on their soil. You know what I mean? Like, again, so what happens in those organizations? Well, it's very specialized training. Now, they have multifunction. They have different roles within counterterrorism, but within that even, there can be different groups that are trained to handle specialized portions of it, right?
Yep, for sure.
So again, why? Let me just flip back. The athlete, the martial artist, and the protector.
It all comes right down to everything you just said, which can be summed up by what Brad said 5 minutes ago. Context determines content.
100%. And I'm going to throw Miss up because I love it. Mac, great question. So Mac's going to throw a devil's advocate question. Couldn't you say it's good to have it all? So what he's asking is, isn't it good then to have it all, to have the skills to deal with the lower level stuff, the altercations, the fights, all this type of stuff that, let's say, you'd get the combat athlete would have or the martial artist would have, and then you say, well, yes, and then also I want to have the skills to be like the tier 1 operator, like if it's life and death and it's imminent grievous bodily harm with a violent criminal predator, isn't it good to have it all? And I'll answer it this way, and then I want you guys to jump in. Yes. Yes, it's great to have it all, but let me hit you with a different question. What's the fucking foundation that you're going to build all of that on? You want to do all of that? That's fucking awesome. How much time, how much money, how much energy you have, and fuck all that. You have unlimited time, unlimited fucking resources, unlimited drive, unlimited passion, access to unlimited tier 1 instruction in each of those areas. What are you doing first? You want to build a house? You know what everybody wants? Everybody wants the rooftop patio. That's what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants the aesthetic. I want the stucco. I want the landscaped yard. I want the 3-car garage. I want the end product. I can't wait to be sitting out in the back deck. I got my built-in barbecue, my fucking hot tub, my pool. Everybody wants this shit. Where does it start?
The foundation.
Starts with the foundation. So what's the foundation? What should be the foundation, in your opinion?
Should be the upper echelon, the top, the highest severity.
Which is life and death.
Okay. Why?
Because it's what really matters. It's the most important thing.
Why is it the most important thing?
Who cares if you can do everything else if you can't survive? Like it's a moot point almost.
Okay.
Like if you're not capable of saving your own life, then all those other skills don't mean much.
What is statistically the least likely scenario for you to find yourself in? I'm not saying like it's statistically so low, but I'm saying what is the least likely scenario for you and your family to find yourself facing when it comes to violence and aggression in this world?
One guy wanting to fight you?
Who's smaller, weaker, and doesn't have
how about let's
no weapons and has no friends.
Okay, let's go this way. The most least likely situation for you to find yourself in is facing violent, predatory criminals that are going to murder you and your family. Compared to what? Compared to facing some fucking asshole who's posturing, who thinks his shit doesn't fucking stink, who wants to fucking trash you and embarrass you, pick on you. He wants to posture for status display and profit, who's being a fucking dickhead because he thinks that that's not your parking spot, that's my fucking parking spot. You don't sit in that chair, like whatever it is, you get what I mean? That happens all the time, every fucking day. statistically speaking, you're probably more likely to get into altercations and fights. Like, that's the context of the situations that you're most likely to face day in and day out in our first world living situations that most of us are in that are watching this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
100%, right? Yeah. This is why it's like I saw a thing the other day, like, oh, this guy tried to mug this girl, and turns out she's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she, grabbed the guy and put him in a triangle choke and held him there until the police came. So she's on the sidewalk, got this guy, her legs wrapped around his knees, got him in a triangle choke, and waited. I think she held him for 20 minutes, and police showed up, and spectators were standing around and stuff like that. She just used a martial art to protect herself. From what, though? Did that guy try to murder her? Was that guy a violent, predatory criminal? No, the guy's trying to mug her. And she defended herself successfully. That's fucking awesome. You know what I mean? I know guys that go out like, oh, I did in this fight last night, and this guy was lipping off to me and talking shit to my girl, and this and that, and I fucking this, and then the guy threw a punch, and we threw down, and I smoked that guy in the face, that guy, and I knocked that fucker out. It's like, okay, good for you. So you box and you kickbox, and you knock that guy out. Okay. You're fucking lucky that you're not in a court of law. You better lucky that he didn't, you hope he doesn't smash his head. Like, everyone has stories of antisocial aggression, situations that they should have removed themselves from, de-escalated or deterred, but they didn't. They postured. They got into this altercation or fight and used their martial art or used their, combative fighting skills, their fighting prowess, their athleticism, and they used that to win. Okay.
Maybe
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, maybe just define for people antisocial aggression, because a lot of people won't have ever heard that.
Antisocial aggression is a situation where you have choice, right? See, break it down. Context determines content. There's two types of situations. The first is where you have choice, and the second is where you have no choice. Choice means that you can remove, de-escalate, or deter. And if that choice is there, you got to remember, you have a legal and moral obligation to take that choice. And what we're saying is that is what classifies it as antisocial aggression. Here's the thing that people don't get. You can have choice even if you're facing somebody rude. Now, people get this, right? If I'm rude to you on the street, I just say rude shit to you, people go, well, of course you can walk away from that, because all it was a guy being rude. What an asshole. Walk away. Turn the other cheek. What if the guy's being inappropriate? Well, it's close to rude, but inappropriate. What if he's yelling racial slurs at you? You're an interracial couple, and he's yelling racial slurs at your wife. So fucking inappropriate in today's day and age. I mean, so inappropriate at any fucking point in time, but that's what this guy's doing. Can you walk away from that? Can you turn the other cheek and be the bigger person and walk away? Yes, you can. So you can remove, de-escalate, deter. What about if the guy's being aggressive? He's rude, he's inappropriate, and he's aggressive. Can you walk away from that? Yes, most times, yes, you can remove, de-escalate, deter. What about if he's being violent? He's exhibiting violent behavior. People have to understand that even when somebody's exhibiting aggressive and violent behavior, there's lots of times when you can remove, de-escalate, deter. Right? A guy takes my parking spot and I roll down the window and say, excuse me, sir, but I've been waiting for 15 minutes and I've been sitting here with my signal light on waiting for this gentleman to back out. When he did, you come out of nowhere and took my spot. I'd like you to move your car because that's my spot. Me and my family have been waiting. And all of a sudden the guy's like, fuck you, what are you going to do about it, motherfucker? Get out of the fucking car and I'll kick your ass. He's aggressive, he's violent, he bangs on my hood of my car. Fuck you, what are you going to do? Get the fuck out, man, blah, 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 blah. And what do? Slam the car and park, open your fucking door, and you get out. Well, that was a choice you made. Or you drive away. The guy's, well, I drove away first, so he couldn't kick my car. And once I got 10, 15 feet away, I slammed on the brakes, put it in park. I got out and I went back and confronted that motherfucker. Because you can't do that shit. In that situation, what was the context of the situation? Was the guy aggressive and violent towards you? Yes. But was it an imminent, grievous bodily harm type situation? No. Why?
You had choice.
You had the choice because there was a barrier between you, because there would have to be some other indicator. Like, what caused you to, what made you feel like your life was an imminent, grievous bodily harm or danger, like death? What made you, like, was his hand behind his back? Did you see a weapon in his waistline? And you thought, like, there was cars parked in front of you and cars behind you, like you were blocked in, you couldn't move anywhere, and you had kids in the car. What is the context? That's what determines content. So in these situations, that is what antisocial aggression is you have the choice. And you have to remove yourself from those situations. You got a guy pulls a knife on me. Guy pulls a knife at me as I'm, parked in the shopping center, and I park a little further away because I don't want someone dinging my car. And it's a little bit later, the mall's closing, and walking my car. Two guys walk up to me, they pull a knife on me. I'm not at my car yet. I'm not standing by my car, but they pull a knife. Hey man, give me your fucking wallet. Do I have choice? Now, you guys are going to ask some smart questions. You guys are going to go, does he have a hold of the back of your head? Does he have the knife to your throat? What is his body length? You're going to want to know the specifics of this. But at the end of the day, I can turn and run. Now, maybe they chase. If they chase, starts to change. I can run. Maybe there's no place to run to, but let's say I can run. I'm faster than them. There's a gas station across the street. It's open. I can run. I make it there. I get in. I had choice. Do I have a legal and moral obligation to take that choice? Mm-hmm. Of course I do. Now, the second situation, just because we went down this rabbit hole, is when you are devoid of choice. My analogy is 3 o'clock in the morning, you hear a noise, you come out of your bedroom, you see 2 armed intruders coming up the stairs. They see you, you see them. They don't look at you in panic and fear and run for the fucking exit. Their eyes bulge out of their fucking head, their bodies lean forward, their hand clutches tight around the fucking butcher knife they got in their hands, their feet root deep in the carpet because they're about to sprint up the fucking stairs to get to you. You got your kids sleeping 15 feet down the hall. Your wife's sound asleep behind you. In that moment, what do you recognize? There's no removing, de-escalator, fucking deterrent. There's no negotiating. It becomes obvious that in that fraction of a second, you have two choices. One is submit. Submit and beg for mercy and throw yourself on the mercy of these violent predator criminals and hope that they don't hurt you and your family. Or the second choice is fucking defend. And in that moment, are you justified in using lethal force? Yes. Because the context determines the content, and in the context of that situation, you have no fucking choice. So you need to do whatever you need to do to defend your family. Now, could that situation mutate and change a minute later? Yes. And all of a sudden now there might be a different choice. But in that moment, for that fraction of a second, right, you have no choice. So this is the situation. So what is the foundation that we're building on? Like, we'll wrap it back around, right? I said, like, most people are equating what they're doing to the lower level stuff, the intermediate, the low level to intermediate stuff. So yes, Mac, is it important to have these skill sets? It's great if you have them. Takes more time, takes more energy to learn them, but I think it's actually negligent to start anywhere but lethal force. And when it comes to training lethal force, when sugar turns to shit, when it's not about, here's the thing I love, because like I said, you get comments from martial artists and combative athletes who want to fucking, one guy, he read something that I wrote, and again, this is not about a personal thing. I don't give a shit about this guy, but it's the idea that I'm trying to unpack for people. I had a post, and the post was talking about how important it is to study criminality, that you can't understand violence by studying competition athletes. You can't get it by studying one-on-one, like fighters, martial artists, traditional martial artists, or people that are training for altercations. You can't understand life and death, criminal violence by studying those things. You have to study criminality. And so that's all the point was, is that understand something. And this, I don't get how this is such a shock to people. If I was going to step in the ring and fight Georges St-Pierre, nobody would be shocked that he has a training camp before. Now, he wouldn't need a training camp to whoop my ass, but nobody would be shocked that he has a training camp. And he would go, is there any videotape on this guy? Like he would have a training camp and have the best instructors one-on-one helping him build a fight plan for fight night. So that when we get in the cage in the octagon, he has a blueprint for how he's going to fucking dismantle me. This just makes sense. Yet the second you tell people criminals are doing the same thing, boom. One guy, literally, his comment was, what a load of shit. What a load of shit. How is it a load of shit? It's like, that's the thinking, though. Oh, to get in the ring of the cage, one of our friends, the guy that I've done some training with, and Tom out of Lethbridge, he's just signed his next fight. He's going to fight, I believe it's May 6th. He's taking another fight. And he is having fight camp. He's strategizing and training and adjusting his game to get ready for this fight. There are criminals, both in prison and out of prison, and they are communicating. They are sharing years of experience and knowledge for what? How to fucking victimize people. There's a blueprint for how to assault, murder, and rape successfully. And people are just like, what a load of shit. Look at this guy saying you got to study criminality, that you can't learn about violence from studying combat athlete. What a load of shit.
They think it's a fucking accident.
I
got assaulted by accident. It was an accident that he assaulted.
You know what's even worse? You know what's even worse than that? They don't think it's an accident. They think it's identical. They think it's a fucking fight. They think the violent criminal, if he's going to fight them, is going to be a fight like the ring. This is like, how else could you go, what a load of shit that is? What a load of shit. Fighting is fighting. Like if that guy, like what's the criminal going to do? He's got to put his hands up and he's got to try to punch me. He's got to try to kick me. He's got to try to get a single or double leg. He's got to try to close the distance. Ground and pound, baby. This is what these criminals are going to do. No, that's what some drunk wannabe who got too many beers in him and too many shots while watching UFC 300,946 and goes, fuck yeah, fuck yes. And that's what he's going to do. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but that's what he's going to try to do. And they go, oh yeah, I do that shit for real, motherfucker. You just watch this shit. You know, that's the whole, your shirt says, you know, UFC, but your body says KFC, motherfucker. Like, you know, this is the war because they're stuck in the middle mud. Everything's the same.
The only thing that I can think of right now is just like, it's like everybody has that image and it has that when they're in their intellectual mind, but it's like, they don't think about the times when it's like, oh, they're running to the drugstore because they're not feeling the greatest and they got their kid with them and they get assaulted. It's like in that life factor moment, it's like, it's so easy when you're feeling good and you're like, yeah, I would just do this. It's like, no, that's not, because it's criminality.
Yeah.
They're going to wait. They're going to see you be like, oh, fuck, that guy looks weak. He looks sick. He's got his kid with him. He's like, I'm going to get that guy.
So here's the thing. And I'm just going to do this because, again, we're doing devil's advocate and shit like that. But you said, oh, you know, what they're not thinking of is like when they're, you know, not feeling the best, whatever, they got to run to the store real quick. They got their kid with them and all this stuff. And that's when somebody sees them and goes and targets them and goes, and they get assaulted. When you say assaulted, what does everybody think? Everybody thinks the fight.
Yeah.
Most people go, oh, they got to fight. This is why we use language to fucking dull things down. And this is why when you get people that are trained as martial artists or trained as combat athletes, they use the term all the time, get in a fight, get in a fight, get in a fight, get in a fight, get in a fight. Henry Gracie, who I love, I respect, I think he's phenomenal. I think he's revolutionary. He's not just in his jiu-jitsu, his business methodology. The guy's awesome. But every time I see him on, he's talking about, oh, I got a guy under BJJ guy got in a fight. He got attacked. He got assaulted and he got in a fight and they're going to do a breakdown and they talk to the guy and it's always the same situation, right? Oh, so-and-so was going and this guy was having a breakdown and this guy grabbed him and he's trying to struggle with me. It's always one-on-one. It's always one-on-one and it's always middle of the road altercation stuff. It's all stuff. Most of it is stuff where they sometimes even had choice where they could have walked away, but they didn't because other people, and they go, no, I have the skills. I'm going to control this guy. They operated like security. Which is phenomenal, man. I'm not trying to take anything. Defending is the full spectrum. But what happens is that becomes a limited bias in terms of like they're saying, like, again, the advice. If you're surrounded by 5 guys, negotiate with them. Tell them, I will fight each of you one-on-one. Like, be men about this. If you really want to fight, I'll fight you all one-on-one. Like, that's the mass attack theory. And it's like, because no fighting system actually works against multiple people. And you're right, no art does, but there's strategies that do. Otherwise, like, how does a 6-man SEAL team take down 30 terrorists with hostages and wired with bombs and everything else? How do they do strategies? I don't want to get too far down that slope, but like, I would say this. It's when you run to the drugstore and you've got your kid and you're not feeling great and you're in one of these life factor moments where it's like, oh, fuck, just got to get there. And some violent criminals violently attack you. Like, what words? Like, they try to murder you. Like, maybe that's what needs to be said. What happens when these guys try to murder you? Because, like, this is the game, and it's a weird game, but this is the game we often encourage people to think. Stop for a second thinking of yourself where you're going, I'm the martial artist. I'm the combat athlete. Last night we rolled, right? Last night we rolled. Or for us, it's Tuesday night we rolled. And we're on the ground and we're rolling. We're doing positions. And Dustin, you got me, you're in a partial mount position. Or you rotate, you move to north-south position, and then I got out of it. But then when I got out of it, you countered that and you went to pull mount position. And then I had to fight my way out of mount position, but I eventually did. Like, I can think these things and go, yeah, but I got out of it. Dustin went to go here to here, and I got out of it. Brad's, put some gloves on, throwing punches, and I was slipping these things, and I counter hit you one time, and then, we picked up sticks, and you counter hit me on the stick and stuff. It's so easy to get into this thing, but here's how I think. When I say, at 5 o'clock, or whatever, let's say 8 o'clock at night, you got your kid, you're not feeling the best, you got to run to the store real quick to get medicine. And so you're doing that. And I say, someone tried to murder you. I don't think of me going to the store and how I would defend. I think of me being the predator watching how I would murder that person. That's where my brain goes. How would I get this guy? Super fucking simple. I can tell you a story. There's a guy, one of our clients, he trains, and a friend of his, ex-NFL football player, NFL, not CFL, ex-NFL football player. The guy is 6'7", still 380-something pounds of fucking muscle. This guy didn't retire. He's not old. This guy got put out of the game because his knee had to have surgery. He can walk fine, right? Knee's good, but not to play football. So he's retired. He got fucking mugged. Never even saw it fucking coming. Fractured fucking skull, 130 staples to close his head up. No short-term. Like, the guy's fucked up. The guy was in the hospital for almost 2 fucking months. Like, the guy's confidence, doesn't remember a single thing. How the fuck did they get that guy? Right? When they reviewed the surveillance video from the bank, the guy that got him didn't weigh over 160 pounds. And people say, yeah, well, then they got him on the blind side. That would happen to anybody. It doesn't matter what your skills are. No, that's what the fucking martial artists say. That's what the fighters say. Oh, he got you on the blind side. Why did he get you on the blind side? Because the guy had no threat perception. The guy didn't have a weaponized radar. You understand? Like, this is the importance of, you got to train for the field you're going into. You know what I mean? You know what he was doing? He was counting his fucking money coming back to the car. At the bank machine, his head was on a swivel. But the second he finished and got his receipt and started walking away and walked out of the bank, he looked around real quick, and then life factor moment, his head went down as he went to tuck the money in his pocket. It's like, I was perfectly safe. I was looking, put my head down to put my money in my pocket. That's all I remember. Wakes up in a hospital a few days later. But those are life factor moments. We train for those moments. We weaponize against those moments. Your radar is expanded from those moments because we understand criminality. That's when the criminal's going to get you. You know when the criminal's going to pull your fucking door open to try to get you or carjack you? When your head looks down to put the key in the ignition, when your head looks to put the seatbelt on. How do I know that? Am I guessing? I'm just getting lucky here? No, I know it because you study how they do it. It's just like going in the ring and say, how did you know that you were going to get that left hook on him? How'd you know that? Because every time I watch him fight tape and he throws his jab, he drops his rear, so I knew to counter with that. Oh, you studied it. Oh, what a load of bullshit. Can't study criminality. It's all the same thing. Fighting's fighting. And the foundation needs to be what? Because you don't rise to your expectation, you fall to your level of training. And the whole thing I want to finish my thought on is if I say to you that the least likely situation you're going to face is the deadly force situation against a violent predatory criminal, against someone trying to murder you, that's statistically lower than dealing with the altercations and the assholes. I'll admit that. But if it happens, and it happens once, you better be prepared for that. And that's what you were saying, right? Because you don't get a second chance and you do not rise to your expectation. You fall to your level of training. The danger in not having a solid foundation of deadly force confrontation and then building all your secondary shit off of it and not even recognizing we have a different, there's primary, tools you live and die by, study of criminality, understanding bad guy blueprints, what is the protectR playbook, 10 strategies that counter the bad guy's fucking blueprints for how they're going to murder you. When people have that down, then we go into secondaries. Then you figure out how to handle Uncle Joe at the fucking wedding who's so drunk and trying to argue with everybody. Then you figure out how to control Uncle Joe, how to do a come along. Like, if you're not a cop, why do you need to learn how to arrest people? That's the biggest sense of urgency? Plus, with the tools that you live and die by, the tools that you can use, and the tactics and strategies for lethal force, you can threshold those. You can make a decision not to shove your eye, not to poke someone's fucking brain through their eyeball. You can threshold your shit. So you can dial things down when you need to, but you cannot dial things up. Someone that knows how to do a control can't turn a control into a lethal, typically into something that's lethal. Or at least not in the most efficient way possible when you're outgunned. You get what I'm saying. So anyways, what are some final thoughts on this one, guys?
I think you kind of touched on one thing there, and this will have to be a conversation for another day because we could do a pretty deep dive on it. But again, when you're talking about like martial arts, learning a come along, let's say, to handle drunk Uncle Joe, it's like, well, what are you talking about? Well, tools, techniques. It's like, because that's a lot of what you learn in traditional martial arts, combat athletics. It's like you're not even having a conversation about tactics or about strategy. You've been alluding to that a lot in the last 10 minutes, and it's like, but there's a whole conversation there again of how do you separate the martial artist, the sport combatant, and a protector, someone who's weaponized. Well, strategy, tactics, then tools. Whereas a lot of these other avenues, it's all tools. Let me show you this, which can actually build up a whole a false confidence in self-defense, because you've got this laundry list of tools that you might be really good at doing. But if that's all you have, like, you're set up for potential disaster if you have no tactics, no idea about strategy, right?
100%. Brad, do you want to throw anything on it?
Yeah, you know what? I was going to start by saying that it's confusing. And now that I've had a second to think about that, I want to retract that, because it's not confusing, right? Because most people just don't know any better, and it's so simple for people. Like we talked at the beginning, it's like, oh, and you get self-defense. You get this, and self-defense, where they just say, like, they're not confused about that. That's just something that it's like, oh yeah, you get this. They just lump it in almost like nonchalantly without having that laser-like focus. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not confusing at all. It's almost just a lack of awareness and understanding. But that's not like, well, it is kind of just almost like a blanket statement, but that's kind of how people, they just don't know. Because when you say, oh, I'm going to learn self-defense too, most people are going somewhere and think that they're going to get what is advertised.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things that it is more of a lack of fully understanding the problem.
Yeah, we'll bring it full circle, I guess, in the sense of, three guys walk into a bar. I'll finish my joke. You got the athlete, the martial artist, and the protector, or the sheepdog, the weaponized. All of them at least started with the true desire to learn to defend themselves. But what happens is you have three different contexts of what that means, and the goals and the priorities change, and people fall in love to stuff, or people just have a different goal, and at the same time they want the byproduct of increased self-confidence and increased safety and certainty, because knowing how to throw a punch and knowing how to kick and knowing how to jiu-jitsu, these things do enhance you in terms of your safety, as well as just in every other aspect of your life. So there is lots of commonality with these things. But one of the things that, because I've avoided talking a lot about what the protector is and the sheepdog, because I'm not trying to self-promote. I'm trying to give people contrast of what you get in the combative athlete and you get in the martial skill. And it's like, all of these things can be great, but they tend to exist inside of this low to mid range. But there is this other range. There is this other use of force. And when it comes to the protector, we've been accused of being very myopic. And I agree with a law of specificity. I agree that we are very, niche orientated, but we're not myopic in the sense that we are to the exclusion of everything else. We are, matter of fact, I understand, I believe, more intimately than most people, because I have faced that level of violence. And again, it's always trying to explain sweet to somebody who's never tasted something sweet. Try to explain colors to somebody who was born blind. Like, Where are the words? Because they lack the context. So the context doesn't make a lot of sense. And then they have these experiences that exist within this mid-range of altercations. And they've been in fights, and they've successfully won fights or defended from fights. And it could be a situation where they were attacked by somebody fighting them, and they defended and fought back and defended themselves. But then that becomes the context. That becomes the ceiling. That becomes the floor. That becomes the walls. That becomes the box. And then it's like, have you ever had someone try to murder you? Say, well, that could have turned into a murder. No, a serial like predator criminal who targeted you in an attempt to murder you. And now we're talking about experiences that most people have no reference for these things. And so for us, that is the foundation that all skill has to be built on. I'll end it this way because I'm not alone in this. Let me give you a different example. I referenced the Gracies earlier. Right now in the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Gracies, who typically can be considered, the forefathers of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they had back in Brazil, back in the day when it all started, when you trained in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, you had to first go through and learn their 36 Gracie combatives, their 36 core moves, right? The 36 moves, the Gracie combatives program was all about surviving a street fight, right? A street fight. Not saying predatory criminal violence, but a street fight, which could include somebody trying to kill them, but one-on-one, bigger, stronger guy who had bad intentions, which could have ended up in death. But that's what they had to learn. And it was only once they had mastered those, once they had graduated from that program, let's say, then they went on and started to learn how to do jiu-jitsu, chess match, like jiu-jitsu against another jiu-jitsu practitioner. But in their Gracie combatives, it was all about what do you do against someone that's untrained who's trying to beat the shit out of you, right? Or had trained in a different system. So it wasn't chess, it was checkers. And then after that, then they said, well, if you're still interested now you go forward and learn how to play chess against other chess masters. And that's the fun of it. And that becomes the lifestyle of it and so on and so forth. Well, over the years, that part's being lost. And now you have the Gracies themselves coming out saying, listen, we have black belts that when you start throwing punches at them, they drop 2 belt levels. They don't know how to handle the punches. We've lost the combative. Now you got some of the core guys like Hickson, Gracie, and Henry and them who are struggling to try to bring back or maintain that way. To say you got to learn the foundation. Well, they're doing what has been the history of martial arts, right? Taekwondo, everyone says that. Taekwondo at some point was a fighting system. High kicks because people on the ground were fighting people on horseback. At some point, most martial arts are rooted in actual combat. But then what happens? To gain popularity, they water them down, they become systematized, they become broken up, fragmented, labeled, disjointed, and all of a sudden you lose the martial and you just have the art. And all of a sudden, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is in danger of experiencing the same thing in its evolution. And they're fighting hard to keep their core part of it. Well, this is where the weaponizing process exists. And so you look at it, and again, you got the athlete, the martial art, and the protector walk into the bar. The difference is that the protector, the sheepdog, those that are weaponized, are not martial artists, they're not fighters, they're family men. That's it. They're family men, they're family women, they're husbands, there's wives, there's the brothers, the sons, the daughters. And what they give a fuck about is protecting the family. That's it. That's what they care about. And they are willing to maybe go a little further, travel a little further, rework their schedule, do things that aren't, you know what I mean? They're willing to go, listen, I need to fix it. I want to solve this problem. I want to build this foundation. And that's what they invest in. And as they grow and as they fall in love with the lifestyle, because there is a lifestyle to this as well, then they find themselves, not only have they built that foundation of being able to protect themselves, their family, their loved ones from violent criminal assault, but then they learn also the secondaries. They learn how to, deal with the intermediate and low-level stuff as well. But it's all built on the foundation of lethal force. And, and that's what they fall in love with. And so, again, I think it's just the context determines the content. Everybody, I believe most people, the large majority, start with one goal, which is to learn to defend themselves. I think every path has merit to it. Every path, people doing something is better than people doing nothing. But we have to educate people that what you are probably missing is that lethal force component that is singularly focused and understands on what the training methodology, the strategies, the tactics, the tools, the study of criminality, that piece builds a foundation. And building that foundation is different than building the walls or building the roof or putting on the stucco. It's all very different. And this is why we have a lot of clients that come to us that are martial artists, that are traditional artists or competitive fighters. I mentioned, Tom and some of Trevor's guys, they're professional fighters. Yet they come to us because they want that foundation and they recognize that it is different. And so they step out of their world and step into our world and allow us to help them build that foundation. And then they go back to their world and pursue their dreams and what they love. And that's great. But they see the difference. And more people need to understand this and see this. Hence the conversation tonight. So,
yeah, well said.
Okay. All right, guys, we'll leave it at that. I appreciate it. I wouldn't say it was a rant tonight. I just think it was an important conversation because, I don't know. We're divided, right? Like we just need to see things for what they are. We're not talking better or worse. We're just talking different. Context determines the content. I say it all the time. I'll continue to say it all the time. But just really focus in, what do you want? Know what you want and don't settle or don't be deluded into something different, right? So, all right, that's it. Okay, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, Dustin, Brad. Appreciate your time and your insight as always. Thanks for being with me tonight on this conversation. Thanks to everybody that got on. Matt George, nice to see you, brother. Hope things are well for you guys. Anybody that saw this, joined us, please like, share, follow, comment. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you like to download your favorite podcast. The Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. We do this live every Thursday night. Also, with our podcast, if you subscribe, I'm going to start dropping more content with some weekly insights or daily insights. There's going to be lots of stuff coming up. And if you hang out here for a few seconds, I'll cut to my exit. And there's 3 or 4 different ways that I can help you weaponize for free. So that is it, everybody. Thank you so much again. Stay safe, stay weaponized, and we will chat again soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And listen, if you found this content valuable, here's 3 different ways that I can help you weaponize for free. First, grab a free copy of my ebook, The Education of a Weaponized Man. To get your free copy today, head to ebook.awakentheprotectR.ca. Number 2, you can take a free workshop where you will discover the 10 insights violent criminals don't want you to know. To take this workshop, head to workshop.awakentheprotectR.ca. The third way is to head to my website and check out all of my freeline programs that cover everything from mindset to strategies. To check us out, go to awakentheprotectR.ca. And finally, leave a 5-star review so that we can reach more good people like you who are ready to weaponize and rise regardless.